Ladies and gentlemen, Violent Games here. Today I'm going to be covering probably the best sniper in Overwatch, at least on the console version, by a large margin, guys. Like, I just wanted to fucking stress that for you real quick. He is by far, and I've only played like 2 or 3 hours of this fucking character. He is by far the best sniper in the game. I want to tell you why. So I might even do a review video after this one, just explaining how fucking crazy this guy is. But we're not here for that. Let's go over Hanzo's kit, starting with his passive. His passive is wall climb. Basically, he runs up to a surface, you jump once, look at the wall, press X again, and he'll do a little climb. And depending on how tall the surface is, as to whether or not he can reach it, he'll climb up the surface. You can do this to a lot of things. It helps you get to vertical points, which is a part of Hanzo's gameplay, which I will certainly cover in the strategy segment of the guide. Moving on, we have Storm Bow. It is an arcing projectile that, when fully charged, does 125 damage, and when it's uncharged, that means you just tap R2, or right trigger, you do 29 damage. However, in between there's a medium damage profile that I could not for the fucking life of me get my hands on. And I wish that there was more information explaining this damage profile, simply because I want to be able to share that with you guys. But I will go into how you use it, so at least you'll know how to use it. You just won't know exactly what damage it does. I think it's a slightly more or less of a percentage, so I'm just going to go off of that. So the movement speed while you are charging a shot is 3.85 meters per second. The projectile speed with a fully charged shot is 86.66 meters per second. There's probably something in between there, and then the uncharged movement speed of the projectile is 26 meters per second. The rate of fire with Hanzo is 0.5 per charge and 0.5 second delay after each shot. This means your rate of fire is usually 1, but during the first shot of any engagement, that's a 0.5 second release of an arrow potentially, which is pretty goddamn fast, especially when you compare it to Widowmaker's sniper rifle. So, and let's talk about another cool thing about the Storm Bow. It has no reload. Basically, each shot has that 0.5 second charge and 0.5 second delay, and that's it. There is no reload required. And when you do a fully charged headshot with, let me just go back to the damage real quick. When you do a fully charged headshot, that translates to 250 fucking damage. This means per second you have like 250 potential damage per second. That's pretty fucking ridiculous, guys. Especially when you have an arcing projectile that has an increased hitbox. So, how do you want to use the Storm Bow? Now, the Storm Bow, the way I recommend using it is you either get the headshot or you just keep shooting arrows until you get a headshot, because your rate of fire is so fast. So you're just shooting at people from a distance trying to land headshots. Now, if you land a shot, the thing you need to practice is follow-up shots. And doing follow-up shots with the Storm Bow is extremely easy. Way easier than Widowmaker's projectile. Now, granted, you do have to aim a little bit ahead of the target with each shot, depending on which are where they are going, based on the projectile speeds that are given to you. However, because of the buff that Hanzo recently got to his projectile speed, this is much easier to predict than it was in the past, guys. I really want to stress that. For people who are looking to play Hanzo, I think now is the time. Back then, you had a weird projectile speed time. Now it is much more consistent than it used to be, and you can still get off some of the cheeky shit that makes me rage at Hanzo all the time. And you'll even see me do some of this where someone will like come up on me and I'll just get a random headshot and kill them. Like shit like that happens. So let's talk about follow-up shots. Follow-up shots do not need to be charged fully. When you get a fully charged shot off on a character, your follow-up shot, especially on 200 health targets, I mean, not tanks. Tanks aren't going to die with this technique. But anyone from 250 to 200 health, you charge a fully shot, hit them in the body, then follow up with a half shot to finish them off. This works very well, and a lot of people don't know that half-charge shots are extremely viable. In fact, half-charge shots, like say you go a little bit above of a half-charge. You do like 0.1 second over a half-charge. If you hit someone in the head with that, they die immediately. So those are just some additional little things about the bow that I wanted to talk about. Now, practice your follow-up shots, kids, because that is your B&B with Hanzo, especially on console, and especially because most of your shots are going to be body shots anyhow. You're not going to be pulling off a bunch of headshots in a game where everyone moves super quickly, so do practice just getting your arrows off, and especially at point blank, feel free to do half-charge shots in those engagements, because it's actually very useful. So, remember, when you hit them in the body with a fully charged shot, follow up with a half shot. That works very well. Also, focus on 200 to 250 health targets. Stripping down tanks as Hanzo does not work that well for me. In fact, I die to it often when I'm trying to kill like a Reinhardt or someone along those lines, because you can't really evade that well with Hanzo. So when you get into a close quarter situation with the tank, they can usually kill you. Just wanted to keep that in perspective. So let's move on to your next ability, Sonic Arrow. Now, the way that Sonic Arrow is used is just like any other arrow you would use commonly in your main with the Storm Bow. And in fact, let me just state this first off so I don't have to say it again. All of Hanzo's abilities come from his regular fire, which is actually really good, because you only have to practice firing one type of arrow to learn Hanzo, which is pretty fucking incredible, and it gives you so much wiggle room to practice your shots and learning that projectile speed at half charge, no charge, and full charge. So that's why I think it's really awesome that everything that Hanzo does ability-wise is an arrow. So what does it do? Basically, upon impact, a 10-meter radius will expand as a wall hack. So kind of like Widowmaker's visor, you shoot that out, a 10-meter radius comes from it, and everything is pretty much covered from there. And it lasts about like 2 or 3 seconds. There's not even a thing here that says that. But the cooldown for the ability is 20 seconds. That's pretty long, but at the same time, guys, I'll be completely honest, Sonic Arrow is not OP, and to be honest, is a very weird part of this kit, being that it's not ultimately that useful. You're not going to be like, oh shit, Sonic Arrow's on cooldown, fuck, I'm so screwed. You're never going to be in that situation. It's more of a convenience thing, because lining up shots with Hanzo is not as clutch as it is with Widowmaker, where you have to get that exact frame and that exact whatever and really preemptively think about taking a shot. It is much more useful for Widowmaker to have wall hacks than Hanzo. So definitely keep that in mind. This is probably the least effective ability in his kit. Let's move on to Scatter Arrow. Now Scatter Arrow, again, like all of his other abilities, come right out of his regular fire, so let's just ignore that. And the initial damage from the bow is exactly the same. But let's talk about the Scatter itself. The Scatters itself does 75 damage per arrow. That translates to a total of, by the way, the scattered pellets are 6 scattered arrows. So the maximum DPS you could have is around 450 with that scatter shot. But there is something that prevents this damage from coming to fruition a lot of the time, and that is that Scatter Arrow is the most inconsistent ability in the game. Sometimes you'll use Scatter Arrow and just shit on whoever the fuck got hit by it. You can strip down tanks with this ability if they get hit by all the scatters. You can fucking you can just insta-melt anyone who's harassing you, like say Tracer. You hit Tracer with Scatter Arrow, she's fucked. She can't do shit. So, hold on, let me cover the cooldown real quick. The cooldown for Scatter Arrow is 10 seconds. I'm running out of breath here because it's very hot in this apartment. I apologize. So how should you use Scattered Arrow? I think the most effective way to use Scatter Arrow, and I do make this mistake, is to actually shoot at their feet, because the arrows kind of come out, like the impact happens, right? And the arrows spread out from there. They don't immediately go into the target that you're shooting. If they did, it would be fucking ridiculous. But the arrows scatter away from your target, so it's actually best to shoot at their feet and let the scatter itself hit the enemy. So when you're trying to kill someone with Scatter Arrow in a 1v1, you want to shoot at their feet. Another way to use Scatter Arrow is when you're above a team fight, like you've got to a vertical position. Just shoot Scatter Arrow down upon them, doing residual damage to like 2 or 3 enemies rather than just like dump trucking in one enemy. It's a pretty easy way to use it. But I think that when you're using Scatter Arrow, one mistake people will know if they're not aware of how it spreads out is they'll actually shoot the target or go for the target. Again, I make this mistake a bunch of times throughout my gameplay. I don't know how much I'm going to put it into my edited footage, but we'll see. So that's Scattered Arrow. And by the way, the Scattered Arrows themselves do not have headshot multipliers. If they did, that would be fucking stupid. So let's move on to Dragon Strike, Hanzo's ultimate, or as it's commonly known, Ruga Wakateki wo Kuru. It's pretty fucking awesome. So Ruga Wakateki wo Kuru is a linear projectile that shoots from one of his arrows. So you shoot out one of your arrows, and then your your ultimate goes. It doesn't go with the arrow for some reason, but it goes in the direction that that arrow was fired. So the initial damage you could do with the arrow is 125, but the damage you do with the dragons is 200 per second, and the area of effect of these dragons is 4 meters per second. The range of this ability is unlimited. It goes through the entire map, essentially, and it has a rate of fire of a 1.5 second charge, so there is a little animation when you are activating your ultimate that essentially you are vulnerable during these frames, and if you get killed during this, it will cancel the ultimate, so do keep that in mind. The charge required is 1,200 points. Basically, this means that if you're on your game, this ability will be up 2 to 3 times per round on average, maybe even 4 to 5 depending on how good you are. So, how do I suggest using Ruga Wakateki wo Kuru? I recommend doing it when it's least expected, essentially. Use it whenever the enemy are in a linear hallway as well, when they don't have any options of getting away from it. That's another way. Or if Zarya is using her ult, that's another way. But usually you won't kill a lot of people with this ability anymore. And why is that? The reason you don't kill as much people with dragons as you used to is because people understand this ability now. It's very telegraphed. There's a loud cue that lets people know that you're using it. So it's very, very easy for players to move away from the predicted dragons that you just released, and this can cause it to be a lot less effective. Just keep that in mind. Ultimately, on average, you're not going to get more than 2 kills with this ultimate ability if you use it properly. So don't be super discouraged if you don't land a lot of dragon strikes. Just throwing that out there. Use it when it's least expected. I actually like to flank, then use it most of the time, but I'll also use it in team fights when the enemy's priorities are elsewhere. So, that's all I got to say on the abilities. Now let's move on to the strategy of Hanzo. How do you want to play Hanzo? Well, you can play as a mid-range or long-range sniper, so that means playing a traditional sniper role. You're kind of like up in scaffoldings, just kind of taking pop shots and shit. Super fun, you know, basically what you would do with Widowmaker. Or you can literally just get up into the fray, and as long as your teammates are tanking damage for you, you should be able to land off of a bunch of pop shots. And I do this on Capture the Point maps as well to illustrate that it is possible to play Hanzo in any situation. So, again, just to reiterate, you get to vertical points and rain down from the enemy switching their priorities, so that's kind of a flanker's way of playing Hanzo. I don't recommend being a backline harasser because you will die. Hanzo in 1v1 doesn't always favor you, but then again, you can get a lucky headshot and then it potentially could. So I recommend staying relatively close to your team or in the back lines taking pop shots. That's the simplest way of putting it anyhow. Now when it comes to team composition, Hanzo works well with any team as long as there isn't another sniper present. I don't recommend, except for Ana Amari, I don't recommend if Widowmaker is on the field or another Hanzo if you're in quick play, that can happen, to play Hanzo. You should only have 1 sniper per team composition, except for Ana Amari. That is the exception because she can heal, and if you have a good healer sniper, that's different than a good offensive sniper. So that's as far as I can really say with Hanzo. Now, for ideal matchups, I have some pretty anecdotal ones here, and I kind of want to hear your guys' opinion on Hanzo. Given that I'm not super well versed with Hanzo, obviously, I want to hear your guys' feedback. Alright, so covering ideal matchups. Hanzo kind of has a variety of ideal matchups. I find it very easy to kill Lucio and maybe strip Roadhog of his health, you know, given that his head hitbox is so large. But I think that Hanzo's ideal matchups are 200 and 250 health heroes, like Lucio, Soldier 76, Reaper, and Junkrat. Because your projectile is very generous and very forgiving, and it takes roughly 2 shots to kill most of that cast. Maybe it takes a little bit more to hit Reaper if you don't do 2 fully charged ones, but hey, that's just Reaper being Reaper. And with Scatter Arrow, you could potentially kill him with 1 shot, so keep that in mind as well. So really no like specific ideal matchups. To 200 and 250 health heroes I find the best to kill with Hanzo. Now when it comes to your Achilles heel and your weaknesses, keep your eye out for Tracer, Genji, other snipers, because other snipers can fuck you up if you're not paying attention. And who else? Potentially McCree if he gets close enough to you anyhow. And yeah, Junkrat could potentially get you as well, but I find that you'll be spacing Junkrat too much to really have him be a potential threat to you. So that's really all I have to say for team composition, guys, and that's really all I have to say for the guide. Let me know if you want me to do a review of this character. I know people think that I absolutely despise fucking Hanzo and blah 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 blah, but if you want an objective review of this character, please let me know and I will gladly do one, as I feel like I have a lot to say on Hanzo. Thank you all for watching if you did. You know, like, comment, subscribe, all that good shit, and I appreciate you watching. Before I leave, though, I do want to bring up that I use the same sensitivity that I use on all my heroes, which is 100-100. And I do like this for Hanzo, especially because you can turn around more quickly. You know, that's the first perk. And because of them, they buffed his movement speed while he's drawing his arrow. You can actually left stick aim with Hanzo. So you can actually use the strafe buttons, or the analog stick is what I should be saying. That's like PC shit. But basically, when you use your left stick to aim with Hanzo, it's actually pretty effective, and it's an additional sensitivity that you can potentially use while aiming at heroes. Anyways, that's definitely it this time. Thank you all for watching. Peace out.